What is a good man? I think it's funny when we talk about guys' struggles that automatically it seems like we're dismissing the struggles that women have. Like women have a ton of struggles, obviously.
We are much more forgiving towards women.
All young boys in particular should be exposed at some point to some type of self-defense or physical combat of some type.
When has it become so polarized that you're either toxic or you're quote unquote healthy?
Embrace the fact that we get to do this. I'm not having to do this, you know?
All right, my guest today is someone who embodies strength, not just in the gym, but in mindset, discipline, and purpose. Jason Khalipa is a CrossFit Games World Champion, founder of NC Fit and Train Hard, and a leading voice in redefining modern masculinity. He's trained elite athletes, he built a global fitness brand, and raised a family, all while challenging the cultural narrative around what it means to be a man today. He's outspoken, unapologetic, and deeply thoughtful. We're going to talk about fitness, fatherhood, mental toughness, and why he believes the term toxic masculinity has gone misconstrued. This is going to be a powerful conversation. Jason, welcome to the show and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I really do. You know, I think that any opportunity I have to get in front of an audience and share what I think guys should be doing to help improve themselves and as a byproduct show up better for their family, for their friends, for their community, I'm here. And then, any insight I could give into how people can get back on the path if they've fallen off the fitness path, I'm here. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. And a lot of the work that you've done, you've served as a mentor for a lot of guys. And I'm curious, where do you feel there's a gap between how we saw masculinity years ago to what it's evolved to today?
I mean, I think that, a lot of terms get thrown around a lot of people have emotions. Like if you use the term masculinity, I think a lot of people instantly have some type of some type of thought goes through their mind. And I think it's unfortunate if it goes to anything but positive, meaning like it's unfortunate if they look at it as like this idea of a negative thing for a guy to be masculine. And I think that we need to do a better job of defining what masculinity looks like and what a good man, more importantly, looks like. So I've actually, started to over time almost like think about getting away from the term masculinity. This is just me personally, and just getting behind like guys at Train Hard. That's our brand that's really aligned to help men become more capable. We're about supporting and building good men. What is a good man? It's a guy who is committed, who's dedicated to his family, to his friends, who isn't out there getting distracted or looking for the next crutch, right? Who is hardworking, dedicated. And I think all the things that we know of when we think of what embodies a good man is what I'm trying to strive for. And anything outside of that, like an insecure man, that is all the things you think about when it comes to negative masculinity is not what we want, right? We need to do a better job enforcing what we're looking for out of men. We need them to step up and be better.
So a lot of what you're describing has created this triggering response in people.
Yeah.
In terms of what they expect masculinity to be. And like you said, if someone's very insecure, it's particularly triggering. But when do you feel we've started creating this gap or this divide as opposed to it either not being a category at all, or just allowing the category to be a spectrum? When has it become so polarized that you're either toxic or you're quote unquote healthy?
I don't know how it's happened, right? If you look at like societal norms over the years, and you and I were talking about this, both of our families are coming from Iran. Our men were raised in a certain way, right? In general, right? When you think about, again, we're talking about generalities, you would think like being a man was like being tough and not compassionate or loving. Like being a man was this, right? And that's, I think, where you get this toxic concept from. But I think that we need to evolve that, right? Here we are, and men can be both things. You can be dangerous and compassionate. You can be capable and loving. You can be tough and also, the person, the father that your children go to. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, and I actually think it's unfortunate if people believe they are, because as a man who's raising a young son, my son's 11. In particular, when it comes to martial arts, I think there's a lot of benefit here, but I want my son to be the guy in the classroom who is comfortable and confident, who's confident in his own skin. Because I don't know about you, but when I was in high school, the biggest bullies were actually the boys that were the most insecure,
100%.
right? And so if I could build confidence in my son through sports, through jujitsu, through me just showing him the way, right? Leading, that's what I'm looking for. Because I want my son to be confident in his body, but also at the same time, caring and loving. And I think you could be both of those things. The guy who could stand up for the individual who is getting bullied, but also not get bullied themselves. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we need more men to embody, are those characteristics. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Do you think there's men that are hyper correcting, meaning they are trying to, we have, as a society, have created a standard of what masculinity is, and there are men that are unable to be authentic because they're striving to be someone they're not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that could probably go for, I think there's a lot of guys that are probably trying to strive. I mean, for me, it's like I don't need to be extra tough because I'm confident in myself, right? And I think that the more guys you meet who are truly confident, and in particular, I think a lot of that comes through hard work and exercise. I do. The most dangerous people I know are also the most loving and compassionate. And I don't think that's a
They're
happens
related.
chance. Yeah, they're related. They're related because these men have built up their confidence so much through hard work, through effort, through learning, through growth, that they then can approach situations more calm and collected and understanding, versus the young man who's insecure for whatever reasons, and then all of a sudden they have to get their security by taking it out on other people. And I actually think that's where you get this toxic masculinity piece, right? Is that it's actually a really insecure man who then needs to feel better about themselves by beating down other people. That's the worst.
So they're essentially compensating.
Exactly. I mean, wouldn't you say? I mean, think about back in high school, I think, as the best analogy.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think those who compensate, there's a lot of underlying, not just insecurities, but like lack of resolution with growing up in terms of gaps that
Sure.
they have, that they never either there was no closure, or there wasn't proper nurturing, or there's skills they never learned, and they're now muscling through navigating problems that either A, they might not even have to navigate, or they could be a lot more level-headed in handling. I see this a lot with men that have intermittent explosive disorder,
Yeah.
where there is well, that's kind of like anger management, right, as a diagnosis, but it's overreact, this gross overreaction to a stimulus. Um, that's meant to correct for not knowing how to handle the trigger. Yeah.
Right.
So meaning if I bang on the table, if I flip the table upside down, if I raise my voice, why are you flexing? What is like the only thing that happened is like the woman at the cash register person gave you the wrong change, man. You don't
Right.
need to like, it's not a big deal, and you certainly don't have to now put on this whole theatrical show that you are going to put your foot down and you're going to be the man. Like, so I do see that a lot with like intermittent explosive disorder. But even then, I think the underlying cause is you've never learned how to navigate those situations, and you're not self-assured enough to know that this isn't worth the the reaction or the stress, right? And you see this
Right.
in jiu-jitsu too.
All
If you know you can handle a conflict, you're probably not even going to throw down because you know it's not going to end well for the other person. So you
Well,
would
I mean,
want,
imagine like you're wrestling, right? So I think all young boys in particular should be exposed at some point to some type of self-defense or physical combat of some type.
Yeah,
I
some
just think
contact sport.
contact in a very structured environment, right? I think that team sports teach you so much about teamwork, hard work, etc. Individual sports, especially wrestling, jiu-jitsu, etc., they teach you a lot of things. But what I've noticed after hosting a weekly free men's club workout in a parking lot for 2 years, what I've noticed is that men come and they leave different. And they leave different because all of us are carrying stress. And it's not to say women are not. Women are as well, very much so. But men are carrying certain burdens and we don't talk about them much. It's not supposed to be talked about, right? It's just like one of these things we just like brush under the rug and suck it up and get through it. I'm not saying that's a good thing, by the way, but they come to the workout and all of a sudden through the workout, they're sharing suffering with another man next to them. And all of a sudden a bond starts to be created. And then every week we go grab coffee after. And that's where the real something special happens because now you get to really connect on a personal level week after week after week, but only after you get the endorphins running, you get the hard, like it needs to go through that. And then we have these great conversations. And I think that if more men took the time to go do hard things intentionally, to go exercise and really work on themselves physically, I think you would see less of the type of people you're talking about that go flip the table over because they're intentionally putting themselves in this, adversity, this, and then it's going to help them show up better for the rest of the day.
Do you think it's easier to be authentic as a man or a woman?
Ooh, I mean, I can't speak from a woman's perspective, but I would say, I don't, that's a really great question. I
I
don't
don't
know the
know.
answer.
Not
Yeah.
as a psychiatrist. That's one caveat. This isn't like a professional opinion, but I do think um, we are much more forgiving towards women
Yeah.
than we are to a man. Still, I think uh, a guy would think twice before he does something um, that may or may not be socially acceptable in a woman. But I don't know. I mean, all our female listeners might blow up this
Yeah.
podcast and tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. But
Well, and it's also your perspective, right? Because I think it's hard to relate because I'm sure women have their own struggles. I think it's funny when we talk about guys' struggles that automatically it seems like we're dismissing the struggles that women have. Like women have a ton of struggles, obviously.
true.
And
But if
but
you had to pick statistically, a woman going to a football game or a guy going to the ballet,
mm,
which
yeah.
which one seems easier to pull off in the current
Yeah.
in society today?
Yeah, but it doesn't even like, yeah, no, it's funny. So my wife and I prefer like the more quote unquote girly drinks. Like I like an Aperol spritz and she
Yeah.
likes a martini. So all of a sudden the expectation is that when the martini comes, it's gonna be, or like whatever. But I don't care because it doesn't bother me at all because I feel comfortable. And
I'll tell you a funny story. When I met my wife and we were dating, um, I was trying to cut weight at the time, so
yeah.
I ordered a salad with grilled chicken.
Oh, there you go.
She got
Perfect.
a huge burger with fries and like all the works. And when the food came, they gave me like the big entree and they gave her the salad. And I was like, actually, she's having the burger. And I remember we laughed about it that like how I mean I was okay with it, but it just was obvious that the waiter
Yeah, there's these norms, but I
yeah.
think it all comes back to like when you're talking about this term of toxic masculinity, I think what it all comes down to is how are we raising our youth to have these young men show up in a way that we're going to be proud of, that they are going to show up in a room and be the one who sure can open the door, but can also be the one who can have great conversation, can be caring, loving, but at the same time, if he needed to, can fight his way out of that room. I think that's very important. And we talk about
You
something I
think it's
train hard.
safe to be that way though? Have we
Who?
created like the Ideally, that's great, everything you're saying, but
Yeah.
we created a safe enough space for that.
I think it depends on the dad, because my vantage point is very different than yours and somebody else's. My vantage point is that I live in an environment where I am surrounded by guys who are constantly trying to level up, and all of them train jujitsu, go to the gym. A lot of them have experience with firearms. This is just like the world I live in because I train a lot of law enforcement groups. Customs and Border Protection is a client of ours, San Jose PD. So I work in these environments a lot. And so my, I guess, echo chamber would say that it is getting better.
It
But
is
I
getting
think
no, it is getting better. I mean, I could tell you, looking at the environment my kids are in at school is very different than the environment I was in.
right.
The bullying is not the same as it was. It is a lot more tolerant. Kids could be, I think, a lot more authentic and genuine than ever before. That said, we are seeing on the flip side, though, in terms of bullying, there is an issue with social media where
Oh,
bullying used to only be 9 to 5 or whatever school day is, 8 to 2. But now it can continue when you come home. So that's a whole other issue, that bullying has taken
but
a turn for the worse in that sense. But I
but
do,
whose responsibility is that? So let me ask you this question. I mean, because you're an expert in this space. I think that if more men were present at home, and if more men were doing what they could, we have this slogan at Train Hard called protect and provide. Like we want to train, protect, provide. And when we talk about that, protect is like, can you, like, did you hear about the guy who his daughter fell off the Disney cruise?
you posted it yesterday.
Yeah. So this guy, he Joe's, and regardless, he shouldn't have had his daughter on the taking a picture on the banister or whatever. That was a dumb idea. But the fact that he jumped in, he treaded water for 20 minutes. That's what I'm talking about protect. Can you run, jump, climb, lift, and perform your duty as a husband, as a father, but also the provide piece? I think that a lot of times when people think about this word provide, especially as a man, I think this is actually a detrimental thing. They think about it in terms of money. And money is important, obviously, but you got to provide so much more than that. You have to provide experiences, and being present is key. So back to the whole the bullying thing. I think if more dads were more present and aware, they would be able to help these other young men, which in general it's men. The girls have a completely different way of bullying. That's really brutal. But in the in your typical fashion of bullying with like fighting and bad words, whatever, I think if the man was more present and set the tone to his son that this is unacceptable, we'd be in a way better spot.
So what do I tell a lesbian couple raising boys?
Well, so my sister is a lesbian couple raising a boy, right? And the key is to surround that young man with other men who could show them what being a man and masculinity is in a very positive way, right? And obviously, these women are doing an incredible job with what they know how to do. But I think having other men, and this goes for me too, by the way, what my son should be exposed to is other men to give him an idea of what a good man looks like. So I want him exposed to all the coaches that embody the characteristics of a good man that I want to be able to show my son. So he doesn't just think it's dad. It's dad, is dad's friends, is dad's coach. It's these people. And I think a lesbian couple could do the exact same thing, just obviously not within the home, but they could then have these other coaches in the environment.
Hmm. Well, speaking of coaching, I think frustration tolerance has changed over time.
Mm,
Grit has changed over
yeah,
time. Um, Even the ability to tolerate any sort of like pain and suffering. I think we've evolved in a sense where we've created a society that is a lot more reactive and sensitive to
soft. Yeah,
right.
right.
I'm just trying to, I gotta keep it peace.
Soft. I mean,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, like it's
it's true. It is true. Call it what it is. Yeah. Why is that, and how do we undo that? Because the world isn't that nice, and if we are not teaching children the skills to navigate challenging situations because we're coddling them, or we're obsessed with tolerance and accepting everyone no matter what it is, no matter who gets hurt, they're in for a very, very rude awakening when they go out to the real world. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous to send kids out to the world without those skills.
It's a huge negative for the child, right? And you're doing your child no service. You're not, because the world doesn't owe them anything. So as soon as they get to a point where they're out of this traditional system, the world is going to come and again, it doesn't owe them anything. Where so now it's going to come at them hard, and they're not going to have the tools to overcome it because they haven't been developing it over the last 15 years prior, you know? And so, I think when it comes to the youth, and I'm very passionate about this, your children are a byproduct of what they see, and also the people they're surrounded by, and also what you expose them to, right? The other day, my son was deadlifting in the garage with me, and
How old is
he,
he?
my son's 11, and he deadlifted two wheels for the first time, which this is a while. This is like maybe 3 months ago. Two wheels is 225, right? 225 pounds. My son's been lifting since he was 5, so it's not uncommon for us to lift relatively heavy. So he lifts his 225, and I look at him, I was like, bro, that is a lot of weight. Like, you should be really proud of that. Like, most grown men can't lift 225 pounds off the ground, and that's awesome. He looks at me, he's like, Dad, what are you talking about? Like, super serious. He's like, every guy we know, every guy can lift this off the ground. And I was like, no, every guy that you know can lift this off the ground, because all the people we surround ourselves with are all like-minded. They're all trying to physically be capable, because we know that if you're physically challenging yourself, generally it translates to your mental health as well. Not always, right? But I think it's easier to be mentally well if you're physically well. And where I'm going with this is, I think a tangible takeaway for all the men and women, whoever is listening, is that we need to do a better job exposing our children to hard things. And I like to figure it out as micro doses of adversity. That's what I like to think about it, is that you microdose, name the thing, right? But when it comes to adversity, you don't want our children exposed to high doses of adversity. Like I was telling you before we started recording, my daughter has gone through a lot of adversity, including leukemia. That in itself was 3 years of a lot of adversity, a lot.
Sure.
I don't wish that on any family, any person, anything. So you don't want that type of adversity. That's too much. But what you want is just enough adversity to go up to bat and strike out, to get in the garage and do a push-up when they don't want to go bring up the trash cans when they don't want to go do this, and start challenging it and building it and building it and building it, exposing to maybe cold plunge, sauna, this, developing their mindset so that they learn tools like understand what's in their control, positive self-talk, so that when life does come and kick them in the gut when they're in high school or college, they've already been developing these tools from a young age because you're exposing them to it.
So in that's I totally agree, and I think being exposed to more adversity and having the right role models to teach you the appropriate coping skills is huge. At the end of the day, as a parent, you're modeling, and the way you react to a situation, the way you navigate a situation, they're looking at you. And if you're very
Right.
dysregulated, they learn that's appropriate, that you're supposed to yell, scream, lose control. So that is very accurate, and I totally agree. One thing that's interesting, though, is in your scenario of your son deadlifting, what happens when you're modeling what you want them to become? You're surrounded by these great people, you're teaching them all these values, and they're finding themselves actually growing further away from that instead of towards that. Meaning, there
Mm,
are scenarios where, and I see
mm,
this a lot with like military fathers, children from like military dads that are very overbearing in how life should be,
mm,
the discipline, the structure, the timeliness. the training, the assertive communication, and there's almost like a reverse effect
Mm.
where
They were like resist.
they resist or they
Yeah.
rebel or it is
Yes.
overbearing. So now they
Yes.
start wanting to do the opposite. Could there be that recoil where like,
Yeah.
you know what? You want me to be this big gym guy, do jujitsu, grapple, whatever. I'm actually going to learn robotics and 3D
Mm.
printing, and I'm going to learn computer programming. And
That's such a great question. That's a great question, and I think it's super valid, by the way. So I just want to start by saying that both of my children are very different, and we raise them like we were talking about with you and your four children. Every child is different, and we
sure.
raise them different as such. I have pushed too hard in the past, and I've had to learn that that was not the right path when it comes to fitness and letting them come to me and ask me to go do these things. That's been a huge lesson that I've learned the hard way. I've also had to learn that although I think fitness is a tool that all children should be using, it's not the only thing. So like our rule is like sweat once a day, right? I just want kids to go do something physical. I don't care what it is. My daughter loves water polo. My son loves baseball. But the one thing that we have done is the only thing in our house that's like a prerequisite is that on a weekly basis, once a week, we get in some form of self-defense. And the reason why I'm okay with kind of having that, like, and again, there's some weeks where maybe we skip it and I'm trying to have some grace because to your point, you don't want them to be like so resistant to this. They're at an age now where they can communicate well. And hopefully we communicate well with them. And we explain the why. Why I want you to do once a week with me self-defense is because you're a 14-year-old girl. I want you to be able to protect yourself. Let me share with you this. And in general, when they understand the why, and if you communicate well, and if you don't push too hard, it's gone well for me. But I totally see what you're saying. And I think one of the things that's helped me is kind of using the art of detachment. Um, so what I try and do, and I'm getting better about this, is Echelon Front. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's Jocko Willick's company. They have something called the art of detachment, detaching from your ego, your emotion, and your perspective. Have you heard this before?
I mean, I know his books well. I don't know the program, but I've read most of his books.
The theory is, I mean, again, the theory is when something's going on, hey, take a step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, hey, am I detaching from my ego? Is my ego in the way here? Am I being emotional when I make this decision? And then the one that I really appreciate is the perspective. Like, hey, am I looking at this through other people's lenses? And when it comes to stuff with the kids, I'm trying to do a better job before I say anything or react in a certain way, just taking a deep breath and just saying, hey, like, are they pissing, are they getting me angry and am I being emotional? Well, that's not good. You're never going to do anything good when you're emotional, right? Are they doing something that's affecting my ego? Well, maybe not, but this might happen at work or whatever. But my perspective is different, right? My perspective is, dude, I got to get you to get safety. I care so much about your safety. For them, they don't care. So I got to learn to communicate that better. That's been my goal the last, couple of years.
Oh, and then that's very valid. Curious though, when you're doing all these things for your kids, do you ever feel like you are copying things that were successful in your upbringing, or do you ever
Mm.
feel like you're correcting for things you wish you had?
That's another good, really good question. I think I'm probably
I should be a psychiatrist.
You should be a psychologist. I would say in general, I'm probably correcting, and then I'm also seeing what I've seen successful. Like my son, my daughter, I believe they're both going to be very successful. They're both hardworking. They both embody a lot of the characteristics I think is just awesome. And I want to instill it. I want to instill it that if you want to be successful, if you want to achieve your goals, you have to work hard. And I'm going to show you what working hard looks like to me by showing you in the gym. Every morning, that dad's up at 5 a.m. in the garage. And I could tell you I'm working hard on a podcast, but you can't see it. But when you come out and you know that dad is sweating at 6 by the time 6 a.m. comes around, I'm just trying to instill work habits because no matter where life takes them, I don't care what they end up doing. I just want them to try and reach their potential and work hard at it. And so I think that if earlier on in my journey, if I had had maybe a little bit more of that, I think some things would have been different for me in high school and college.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, even if you don't think they're watching, they are watching. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I leave the house around 5:30 to go to the gym, and when I'm back home, they all know, they saw, it's subtly sending the message that I'm disciplined and I have priorities and I have a schedule and I take it seriously, and they mirror that whether I realize it or not, or it does seep in, which is
Yeah.
huge.
And I don't want anybody listening. I want to make sure I'm really clear on this. Like, I do believe fitness is the gateway for many, many positive things in your life. I think no matter what you have going on in your life, it doesn't matter. You lost your job, you're having a difficult relationship, it doesn't matter to me. I think that fitness is a phenomenal outlet because what happens when people go through a difficult time, and I'm sure you've seen this, is that they gravitate towards something to numb their mind from this challenging time. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be this, it could be addiction, you name it. But if we could try and find a positive outlet to then, just de-stress, release some endorphins, get our body moving, I think that that's the one out of all the crutches you could lean on. At least this is one that could start building your forward momentum. And that's why I think fitness is such a phenomenal tool to show the children, is because life will be hard. And I think this is a tool they can always lean back on when it is hard to get them through that, versus a ton of other negative things you can get into.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's not fitness for our listeners that aren't attracted to fitness, I would say two things that kids really appreciate is consistency and
Mm,
predictability. I could tell you my mom wasn't big in fitness, but every morning she woke up,
mm.
made us breakfast, got us on the bus, got dressed, went to work, came back from work, got us off the bus, made dinner. Seeing that routine every day, being
Yeah.
and seeing how consistent she was, and knowing that it was reliable, predictable, it was very comforting, and I was able to anchor to that, be like, listen,
Mm.
she knows what she's doing, she does it every day, she doesn't break, or maybe not at least in front of my eyes, and that was helpful
Yeah,
versus
that's
every day, like, some days she works, some days she doesn't, some days she wakes up, some days she doesn't, some days she, like
well,
that.
she showed up. She showed up, right? And I think more men need to show up, at just show up. I mean, you just need to be present. I mean, 90% of it, I don't know if you agree, is like, dude, just being there. Like, if you're just there, like for a recital, for the practice, for the this, for the that, like just being there is so important, I think. And your kids will never forget that. I do want to go back to one thing you mentioned. I think it's important that we share this. Like, if my son or daughter chose to not pursue sports, right? Which my son has dramatically chosen that route more so than I'd say my daughter, I'm fine with any path. If they want to be in plays and if they're artistic and they want to get into that, I don't care what they get into. And I'm going to support them to the nth degree. Like, if my son wants to learn how to scuba dive, I'm going to go do that. If my daughter wants to go learn how to get better at, art and nails, I'm going to go learn that. I just want to be a part of what they're interested in. And obviously I love obviously the jiu-jitsu and the sports and stuff,
Sure.
but I just want them to find something that they love and have purpose and fulfillment through it, to feel like they're achieving something at something. And I think that's why we expose them to so many different things, so that they have a sense of purpose and not just kind of like just like neutral. If it's robotics, it's robotics, that's fine.
Right. Well, one thing that's really powerful there um, is adding the word yet at the end of their sentence, because my daughter came up to me and said, "Well, I'm not, I've tried everything. I'm not good at anything."
Mm.
And I said, "Yet. We just haven't looked hard enough. There's
How
more."
old is she?
Now she's 11, but this was what, a couple of years ago, uh,
Man.
and now she's found stuff she likes. But it's always yet, or she's like, I'll never learn this math, or I don't know this math, and I'm like, yet, you don't know it
Yeah.
yet. You will know it. You just don't know it yet. And then I think being very honest with them in that sense has always been very effective for me, versus coddling them and being like, no, you're doing great. I mean, I feel like that's stupid and it's mocking. The kid knows he doesn't know the math. Yeah. We don't need to lie and pretend you know he's telling you I don't know it. You know he doesn't know it. I never found it effective to be like, actually, you're doing great. I straight up say, yes, you don't know it. It's like wonderful. But that's why we're here, and we're not going to go to
Yeah.
sleep until we know it.
Right.
And I've
The
been
same thing goes in sports, right? Like, when in sports is so like just being real because like they're not stupid, especially as the kids get older. Like
yeah,
they could pick up on like other kids are performing better than I or whatever. And
yeah,
I think it's just having those conversations. One of my favorite things to do, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but one of my favorite things to do is I generally drive the kids to practice. And I love on the way there, just like kind of, it's a little bit more low key. On the way back, it's just, hey, like, let's talk about practice. In a like a really like a positive way, right? Not like because, but I just think those drives there and to and from are such a valuable opportunity to just start discussing like, hey, what's our plan for this week? How do you feel like you did? Is there anything I could help you with? That's been really helpful for me.
yeah. And even there, I try to be very honest. Like if my son says, we did terrible, my team sucks, I suck, break it down. Like, what did we not do well? What did we do well? What did you not do well? What could you have done better? What did you do well? And then like you start kind of processing it and you realize that you can't just put it all in one bucket of everything's terrible.
Sucks. Yeah.
I mean like that's what a lot of time every time they lose a game, they're like we
Oh, I
suck.
suck.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things I think fitness can help with for a child and for an adult. I had a mindset coach or therapist many years ago when I first started competing in CrossFit, and I'd be like stressed out. And he's like, the first thing we did was we kind of identified something that was really stressing us out, and then put things that were in our control in a circle on the right, out of our control in a circle on the left, and choosing to focus on things that are in your control. And it sounds it's easier said than done, but writing that out was really helpful for me, right? So if it's a competition for CrossFit, it's like, okay, well, I'm in control of this. Well, the things that were generally stressing me out, I had no input on. So when you choose to focus on what's in your control, it really gave me a sense of relief. But I'd say the one thing that I've tried to instill with the kids, and I'm getting better about this, and I hope I could do better, is trying to use positive self-talk. And I think that fitness is a really good tool for that because you're in the garage, or you're in the gym, you're doing like a 5-minute workout, let's just say. And I try and talk to the kids and say, like, hey, man, if you were coaching a friend of yours through this, you wouldn't say, hey, your lungs hurt, your legs are on fire. You would say, hey, you're doing a good job. Keep your chest up, find your heels. Like you would coach them like positively. And I find that when you do that in the gym, it then translates into real life, right? Something goes wrong. Instead of immediately gravitating towards, I suck, we this, it's like you look for the opportunity. And I think the gym is a great tool to develop that positive self-talk of you're coaching yourself through the workout. You wouldn't coach yourself telling you your lungs are going to explode.
Yeah, no, that's really empowering. Much harder to do than it's easy to say, hard to do. But I think like anything else with practice, it's
Yeah. It's the
it goes,
reps.
yeah, exactly. It goes a long way to and we see this across all mental health to be your own best advocate, to reframe situations so your perspective is healthier and less impactful. All that requires a lot of practice and training, but it does make a big difference. So very, very true. One last question. If you had to, if you're looking back at your career to date, if you had to give yourself some advice with everything you've learned now, what advice would you give yourself back then?
Oh, man, just embrace like to enjoy the moment a little bit more. I think that there was a time in my life where at the time I was competing professionally in CrossFit. I made a lot of endorsement money. I had signed a major corporate wellness deal with a company called Western Digital, and we opened up 30 locations of them across the world. And I had 2 children at home. And we were making a bunch of money with these things. We were doing whatever. And I would just always just try and fly out for the shortest period of time and come right back. I would try and go to Malaysia for a lunch and come right back. I would try and go to compete, come right back. I would try and always shorten any opportunity to be away from my family, of course, but I wouldn't involve them as much as I should have. And in hindsight, these seasons go by faster than you think. And when you're in the season, embrace the season and do everything you can because it goes by much quicker than you think. And that goes for work, that goes for family, that goes as the kids grow up. My daughter goes into high school in a month. This
Wow.
summer, we're traveling a lot because I know this season is going to be over. And when that season's over and she's in high school, I'm not going to have the same type of freedom. I think if I can give myself any advice from when I opened our first gym at 21 and I traveled the world for the next like long time, I would have said, "Hey, man, these are some just take it in more than always being about the stress and the this and the that. Like embrace the fact that we get to do this. I'm not having to do this."
Absolutely. No, really, really wise words. And I appreciate the insight. Jason, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you. I certainly enjoyed the conversation, and we look forward to having you on the show again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you.